the Department of Justice has dealt a major blow to cybercriminals looking to exploit cryptocurrency. The department has charged Ilya Lichtenstein and Heather Morgan for their alleged roles in a conspiracy to launder stolen cryptocurrency taken during the 2016 hack of a virtual currency exchange. That hack resulted in the theft of almost 120,000 Bitcoin, which at the time was worth approximately $71 million. Today, the value of that Bitcoin has grown to over $4.5 billion.
That announcement from the Justice Department yesterday marks the largest financial seizure in the history of the agency. And that bit barely scratches the surface of this whole massive money laundering scheme, the DOJ alleging that this is connected to a massive 2016 hack of crypto exchange Bitfinex. And to make things even more interesting, the woman accused by the DOJ here was an amateur rapper who once attempted to brand herself as the alligator of Wall Street. So many angles to attack this from, and we've got Ari Redbourn, TRM Labs head of legal and government affairs, alongside our Yahoo Finance cryptocurrency reporter, David Hollerith, to break down this massive bust from the DOJ. Ari, I just want to start off with the kind of allegations that were laid out by the DOJ yesterday. Interesting to see that the two people that were named in it were kind of connected to the money laundering, which suggests that it's not just the two of them, and it may not have even been them that actually hacked the cryptocurrency exchange. So does this suggest to you that there could be other shoes to drop down the line?
There certainly could be. One thing that's sort of worth repeating, and you said this as we started, but what's really extraordinary about this case, Chester, this is the largest seizure in U.S. history. And you sort of step back and you start thinking about that for a moment, really what that means here and the extraordinary nature of this case. It's also really extraordinary that there were arrests made at all. Oftentimes, you'll see these types of large-scale hacks or cyber attacks come from nation state actors like North Korea or Russian cyber criminals, where you can never get ultimately there can never be arrests in the case. Here, it's really extraordinary, I think, for the amount of this seizure and then also for these arrests. In terms of whether there are other people involved, it's really hard to say. There's all kinds of reasons. I spent about 11 years at the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., where these charges came from. And I can tell you sort of a lot goes into charging decisions. Was there a reason they charged money laundering conspiracy and not the hack? But it could also easily mean that, hey, maybe there were folks that are more professional hackers, cyber criminals involved here, but could also just be a charging decision by DOJ.
And Ari, David Hollerith here. So we've talked about this, and it's a pretty complicated web of transactions for what was done with the funds after they were stolen from Bitfinex. But I was sort of curious. It's kind of an open question, but what do you think is going to happen with the funds now that they're seized and in possession of the DOJ?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question, sort of what's going to happen here. Obviously there will be victim compensation around this, which should happen in any case where there's a seizure. One thing that sort of just to double click on, you mentioned this web. What's really extraordinary about this case is this hack occurred in 2016. And what we've seen is just amazing police work from places like IRSCI, HSI, and FBI, where they have used blockchain analytics tools like TRM to track and trace the flow of funds really across the years in the blockchain. And really, if you read through the statement of facts, which is an extraordinary story, really movie-esque, what you'll see here is a list of obfuscation techniques, mixers and darknet markets, automated transactions that these individuals used over the course of laundering these funds. And what we saw here is great skilled law enforcement investigators follow the money, which is what they do at IRSCI, right? They follow the money ultimately to a wallet address that they were able to seize and make arrests. So really an extraordinary case, just all around, and a big win. A big win not just for law enforcement, but also for crypto in the crypto industry. Really, what this says is, look, crypto is not good. Is not good to use for money laundering because it can be tracked and it can be traced. It doesn't matter how long ago you did it, back to 2016, the blockchain is forever, and law enforcement is going to be able to catch up with you.
Ari, I want to get back to that earlier point you made about how this is unusual on many levels. But part of it is that you have this couple who was able to pull this off. It wasn't necessarily a state actor. And I wonder what you think that says about, number one, the vulnerabilities in the exchange or exchanges now. I mean, we're talking about 2016, so I'd imagine things are much tighter in terms of security. Is it about that, or is it about the shifting threat, especially within this space?
It's a great question, and it could be both. Look, I think that this really does come down to a cyber problem, not as much a crypto problem. Crypto is just the means of payment or the stolen goods, right? Really, what exchanges need to really focus on here is hardening their cyber defenses, and a lot goes into that, building out cybersecurity. But I think what we're also seeing is, look, in the age of the internet, a hack could mean the loss of your username or password. In the age of crypto, a hack of an exchange could mean, people losing their life savings. And that's why you see nation state actors engaged in cyber attacks on cryptocurrency exchanges, because they can steal money to fund weapons proliferation. So I think it's really both. And that is the first thing we need to do, is ensure that the crypto industry hardens their cyber defenses against these types of hacks and attacks. And the second thing is we need to make sure we have tools in place like TRM to trace and track the flow of funds, so law enforcement can ultimately, potentially recover them and make arrests like they did yesterday in this extraordinary case.
And Ari, this might be the biggest seizure ever in terms of stolen funds that a government has sort of taken back from criminals. And I was sort of curious, cryptocurrency regulation has been hot and fierce to keep up with the market's dynamic over the last 2 years. And I'm curious, do you think an event like this is going to change the dynamic of regulation for the U.S. or just in general? I mean, something like this, you think, it probably has implications for how people are reading things, but maybe you have a different opinion.
No, I think it's interesting. I think if we were talking here 6 months ago or a year ago, I would say absolutely. You're going to see regulators start to really focus in on what's happening here. I think today, this is in the United States, this is a very regulated industry, potentially on the anti-money laundering piece that we're talking about today. FinCEN, which is the AML, the anti-money laundering regulator for the US, essentially regulates cryptocurrency exchanges like money service businesses, like any other financial institutions. You're required to have a compliance program. You should have tools like TRM in place to monitor transactions. So this is already occurring. I think if anything, what this says to regulators and legislators on the Hill and policymakers is, hey, look, we hear about crypto being anonymous. We hear about sort of, crypto being a good place to launder funds. It is not any of those things. Law enforcement is able to follow the flow of funds in crypto in ways that were unimaginable in, the world of fiat, where you have hawalas and bulk cash smuggling and shell companies. Crypto is different. And I think that ultimately what we're going to have is a growing licit crypto economy where we're able to mitigate the risk of fraud and financial crime.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the shifting dynamics there. Ari Redbord, TRM Labs, Head of Legal and Government Affairs. It's good to have you on today. And our thanks to David Hollerith as well for joining in on the conversation.